Joining me now for our second segment, we have John Gervers and Victor LaCerva. Both are active in New Mexico Men's Wellness, and so I want to thank you both for being here to talk about an upcoming conference, the 2014 Men's Wellness Conference in New Mexico. This is the 30th annual event. The first one held back in 1985, and Victor, you started it all, is that right?
It was myself and two other men from the health department, Art Hoffman and Jeff Pine. And the primary focus of the first conference was a lot around men's health issues.
Right.
We did dietary recall, exercise testing, that kind of stuff. But it became clear to me in one of the evenings that the real juice was in helping men become more emotionally fluent. That things really got exciting when people started talking about their fathers, their marriages, friendships. And so the conference shifted fairly quickly into focusing on that aspect of being a man.
Now that was only 30 years ago, not too long ago, but even back in the 80s, would you say that wasn't as, that men were still sort of keeping some of that bottled up and not sharing as much with each other?
I think for sure. The sort of national men's movement, which was a blip on the screen of consciousness for many people, came in the late 80s, early 90s, when there was a lot of focus nationally on these things. But one of the good things about New Mexico Men's Wellness is that we've really focused on homegrown talent. And so people start out coming to the conference, and 5 years, 10 years later, they find themselves leading the conference or leading workshops in the conference.
Yeah, that's a great point. In fact, how I ended up meeting you gentlemen is through another member of the group that started a father mentoring, the Santa Fe Young Fathers, mentoring young fathers in Santa Fe. So I can see that a lot of people who get involved in this sort of find ways to reach out to other men, it seems like.
Yes.
Yeah. And he's also a past leader, the one that you interviewed before, Barry McIntosh. And there have actually been 25 leaders of Men's Wellness during the 30 years that we've been operating.
Doing the conference, wow.
The first 4 were Victor, and since then, what happens is that there is a leader and a co-leader, and then the co-leader graduates to become the leader the next year. And so this way we have continuity, and there used to be a women's wellness conference too, but it was only one person. And so when she got tired,
it couldn't really.
it couldn't be sustained.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I think has sustained us for 30 years, is that form of leadership.
Yeah, passing it down to the next generation. We were looking through some of the catalog from past years, sort of a yearbook, sort of, if you will, and you were pointing out that this is for all ages. All men of all ages get involved in this.
Yes.
Tell us about that. How do you recruit your members? How do people find out about this?
Sure. Well, they range in age from 16 to 84.
Wow.
And at any one conference, you could have at least one of each, and the whole range in between. But I think most of the men that are drawn to men's wellness are men who are in their 40s, who have already spent maybe 20 years establishing families, setting up whatever their work profession is, perhaps raising children, young children. And they get to a certain point where they begin to ask themselves, well, is this all? And they want to have an opportunity to sort of ask themselves some deeper questions. And those are the men who are searching, and they often come. The other kind of men that often come are people who are in crisis. And my experience was that I was told about men's wellness at a time when my relationship with my first wife was collapsing. And so I was really hurting, and so I thought, okay, we'll go to men's wellness. And of course, getting out of the house and into the car and up there, that's the big challenge, because you never know exactly what's going to happen. Once you get there, you find that people are really supportive, and they're really embracing of the new men who come to a conference.
This year's conference is happening in October, and we'll get you guys the exact dates and everything at Ghost Ranch in Abiquiu. What is the significance of having this in a sort of outdoor venue like that?
Well, first of all, it's one of the most beautiful places in New Mexico. And I think that what happens at the conference is that there's a real sense of safety to be yourself. And one of the benefits of being in an outdoor setting is that we can have wonderful contact with nature to ground ourselves as we're doing this inner work. one of the amazing benefits that I've seen over the years is this intergenerational contact that John was just mentioning. I mean, I've had young men after a conference, one young guy come up to me and say, you know, I've never been in a room with this many men in my entire life without someone being drunk or fighting.
Wow.
And we had another guy who was a gangbanger from LA, had killed people, had been involved in a lot of violence, and during one of the conferences he was actually able to break down and start to grieve, just baby steps towards recovery, but begin to grieve all that he had experienced. So Ghost Ranch, I think, is a very healing place in and of itself, and it's very compatible with the sense that we want to promote about the conference, which is this real sense of being embraced, a sense of safety for men to come and talk about their inner lives and what's really going on with them. We've had amazing experiences with veterans over the years. Actually, the first veteran ceremony happened spontaneously when a black Vietnam vet got up and said, you know, I've never been welcomed home. And spontaneously 40 guys got up and made a line and welcomed him home. And those kinds of experiences are part of the essence of what's made this a vital thing over the years.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, it's really important to understand that our doors are open to all men, no matter what their ethnic background is or their orientation, or and we don't have as many men as we would like from, shall we say, the groups that African Americans will usually have 4 or 5, but out of 80 to 100 people, that's a rather small proportion. And so we actually have had 3 leaders of the conference who were gay, but that's not what it's about. They're a very small proportion, but we are open to all men, because all men's issues are really the same.
And that's where I was going to go with the next question here too. Is what is it? What is the point of getting a bunch of men together? What are the bonds that all men maybe can share?
Well, I guess we started out with most of us having had emotionally distant fathers, and so a lot of us wanted to talk about that, and many of us have had experiences of having relationships break up, divorces, separations, and those are really hurtful experiences, and there are things in which if you carry it all by yourself, as opposed to being able to share it with somebody else, and then find that somebody else has had the same experience, then that is a very healing experience for a person.
Is this more about talking to one another about that and opening it up that way, or are there trained professionals attending these conferences? Well, obviously you're an MD.
We almost always have counselors who are drawn to come to the conference, and there are a couple of primary ground rules for being at the conference. One of which is that you're your own best judge of taking care of yourself. The second is to reach out for assistance if you're having a really difficult time. There are people who usually get up and volunteer to deal with physical issues, to deal with emotional issues that might come up. And I think the undercurrent for me that has been clear over the many years is really about men becoming more emotionally fluent. There's still so many messages in our society that encourage men to funnel all of their emotions into expressing it in angry ways and violent ways, as opposed to dealing with the full range of human emotions which men experience but have difficulty communicating. We often joke that men need to go to a conference to do what women naturally do in the kitchen. And so we create a safe space where, the conference is almost all experiential. There's not a lot of gurus or sages on the stage talking about the way you're supposed to be.
I see.
There's a lot of framing of issues, and maybe John can talk about this year's theme, in a way that encourages you to explore what's going on inside and share it with other people.
This is really, well, I'll get to that. This really is a grassroots type of organization. And there are 2 leaders, a leader and a co-leader. And then what we do is we assemble a planning committee. And right now, our planning committee meetings have drawn 25 men, all of whom will be going to the conference. And we rely upon them for input and support and also for leadership of some of the sessions of the conference. So we don't hire anybody from outside to come in and lecture to anybody. And I think that's one of the unique things about the Men's Wellness Conference.
Yeah.
As to the theme for this year is friendship, men and community. And the reason that we came up with friendship, well, it was partly personal because my experience was that most of my close friends were women before I got involved with Men's Wellness.
Yeah.
And so, you know, because there was that reluctance to reach out and to make oneself vulnerable, to open up and trust another man. And so Men's Wellness, I think, has created that safe container that Victor was referring to, that allows men to share with other men without feeling that that information is going to be used against them in some way. And so one of the things that Men's Wellness has encouraged has been a sense of vulnerability, openness, trust. And those are the three qualities that are most important for a really deep friendship. And so what I wanted to do was to bring together the Men's Wellness 30 years with the theme for this year, and friendship seemed to do that.
Yeah.
You want to get to a man's pain. I sometimes just do this when I'm in an airplane, you know, talking to somebody next to me. You ask them about their best friends, and you ask them about their dad.
Wow.
And you will begin to understand very quickly how many men have a lot of unresolved issues or have difficulty getting to that place of trust. Because again, so much of how we're trained as men is to be competitive, to not let your guard down, to not show your true self. And so we're, apart from transforming the people who come to the conference, this is really about all the ripples that happen outward as a result of men questioning what the dominant model is about what you're supposed to do and the way you're supposed to act to be a real man.
Yeah, well, you know, the real men show their courage in rather different ways than the kind of courage that we're looking for. I think that most men see this in terms of physical prowess in one way or another. They go hang gliding, or they drive their cars very fast, or perhaps even they go off to war and prove themselves as a soldier. Well, there's a different kind of courage that's necessary to involve oneself in men's wellness. And that is basically the courage to share some of one's deeper, more vulnerable places. And a lot of people can't do that. And, so
that's a tough call to tell a man you have to, you know, we still demand so much of, as you mentioned, our soldiers that go out there, or, you know, CEOs or fathers or whoever, we expect them to be a very certain way and then ask them, you know, and hopefully we are letting them open up in this way and starting to. More these days.
Well, all of that outer world stuff is very important, but unless you're spending some time and energy in looking at your inner life and getting in touch with who you are apart from all the conditioning that's happened in families, in schools, in jobs, by the larger culture, then I think you're not going to find the peace and contentment and happiness that everyone's seeking.
And it sounds like this is very, go ahead.
I'd like to say that my wife is very supportive of my doing this.
Yes.
Because she sees the way that I've grown over the years that I've been involved with men's wellness. I'm a different man now than I was 30 years ago.
I just want to say one other thing, though, because we don't want to come across as a man, you need to come to this conference. It's not about that. There is a lot of celebratory energy as well about how wonderful it is to be a male in this time and place. But also to think about what you might have to contribute when you come to a conference. Your unique experiences, your unique insights are valuable when they're shared with other people. And we have a saying in Men's Wellness, you have to do it yourself, the whole process of becoming a man, the whole journey of life, and you don't have to do it alone.
So, yeah.
But we still tell jokes and things like that, so it's all right. I mean, we have a lot of fun as well.
As you said, I mean, you're going to make friends. It's going that just happens on its own. Absolutely. But I like that. I like the open style. Now, you mentioned women. Your wife, she's fine with this. I really honestly can't imagine too many women who wouldn't be fine with this. Obviously improving the men in our society, but But women have been included in the past at times in this conference specifically, is that right?
Well, there's been a debate about involving women in the conference for a long time, because we do spend a lot of time talking about relationships, of course. And about 5 years ago, the leader said, I'm going to break through this. We're going to invite women to come to this conference.
Okay, yeah.
And so he brought about 50 women to the conference, and
for a part of the conference.
for just a part, just for one day. We start on Thursday and we go through until Sunday noon. But on Saturday, 50 women arrived in the morning, and we spent some time doing a fishbowl exercise. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Please explain, yeah.
But a fishbowl is two concentric circles. The men sit in the outside, and they provide questions beforehand to the women who sit in the inside. Then the women discuss the questions that the men came up with. And then...
And the men listen.
And the men listen, they can't say anything. And then they reverse roles. And the men go into the center of the circle, the women sit on the outside quietly, and then the men answer the questions that the women have asked. And so it's dynamite.
Yeah.
And you get to really see into the way that the opposite gender sees certain things. The other thing is that we've involved women in another form, and that is one of our offshoots is a father and daughter gathering, which takes place every year also at Ghost Ranch. And it's rather unique because fathers and daughters don't have an awful lot of time to spend together for any extended period. And this came about because one of the men came home from a men's wellness conference with his son. And they were both filled with energy and just excitement about what had just happened. And his daughter was there, and she said, but what about me, Dad? And so Dad said, okay, it's time for us to do something for fathers and daughters.
Great.
And that's how it got started.
So there now actually are 5 conferences a year. The fall conference is the main conference. Then there's a cross-country ski type event in the winter, which is much more low-key, usually only about 20 to 30 guys. Then there's a spring event with varying revolving topics, the father-daughter event at the main conference.
Well, that conference, let's let everyone know, that is coming up at Ghost Ranch in Abiquiu on October 23rd through 26th. And we'll be mentioning that again on our air on KOB to let people know about it if they want to sign up. I imagine you're still accepting now?
Yes, well, the early bird special ends on September the 15th. If you are interested in the conference, go to nmmw.org. That's NewMexicoMen'sWellness.org. And there you will find all the information about the fall conference. And if you have any questions, of course, you can get in touch with me or my co-leader.
And there's also, we always make scholarship money available. We don't like that to be an impediment for people not coming. And the rates are really just tied to Ghost Ranch rates, so it's full room and board from Thursday evening to Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. Excellent.
For $275. Now, what can you do for 4 days with full room and board for that?
Yeah.
And you will come away with all kinds of, I think, jewels.
Yeah,
as a
what a
result
great,
of that.
great getaway. So yeah, we'll let you know more about that on KOB and post all that information on KOB.com as well. And thank you to Victor and John for sharing about New Mexico Men's Wellness and all the great things people are doing for men here in New Mexico.
Pleasure.
Thanks for watching. We'll be back next weekend for another Eye on New Mexico.